teams. And so after this talk, several weeks, several months later, there are some new research results, new things in the news. So that's what the talk is about, basically. I won't give you all the details I give in the DEFCON talk. You can look this up on YouTube. All right. So the good news is that we don't have quantum computer yet. There's no need to panic. You already know that it breaks RSA and Diffie-Hellman and everything. And what maybe you don't know is that where we today, we hardly know how to maintain a system of like 10 qubits, 9 qubits officially. And what we want to do, we want to break RSA with like 1,000 bits, 1024, 2048 bits. But to do this, we need not 1,000 qubits, we need millions of qubits. Actually, that's what we believe today. Now the question is it a million times harder to use million qubits instead of 10 qubits, or just 100 times harder? So I tend to be a bit pessimistic. People have different views. People will tell you that it will come in 10 years. I don't know. But maybe what we need is a Manhattan project, and it will be much wiser and much cooler to invest this money if this presidential candidate won't do it. It could be much better to do it for this instead of doing it for backdoor. We know it will not work. Okay. People have always been skeptical about, disruptive changes. Even in 1939, Einstein was saying, he knew about this stuff, Einstein, and he was saying that he was skeptical about the ability to create an H-bomb that could be dropped by air, and obviously he was wrong. So maybe people are wrong when they say that quantum computers will not be built. I don't know. But the difference is that then we know that it was possible to build an atomic bomb. But we're not really sure that we can build a quantum computer, at least a realistic one. Okay. That's maybe a big difference. What we know is the theories, the core principles. So I've seen a couple of talks about quantum computing at hacking conferences. Many of them are really good, many by people who know better than me, people who studied physics for dozens of years. But what's not really good for the audience is that they explain the quantum computing in the physics way. They start with the Bohr sphere, all the quantum phenomenon. I think that's very complicated. But they don't put it in the computer science way, which is much, much simpler. The way it works is very simple. Instead of having bits which are 0, 1, we have qubits which are 0 and 1 at the same time. And this is characterized by a kind of probability that can be negative or a complex number. It's a bit counterintuitive, this idea of negative probabilities, but in mathematics it makes sense. And when you look at the qubit, before it's 0 and 1 at the same time, and then once you look at it, it stays 0, 1 forever. And this is defined by a probability that we call an amplitude, the alpha and beta here. You don't need to care about the fancy notation. And the actual probability is this complex or negative number squared, in the sense of complex numbers. And that's it. And you can generalize it to more than two values, to 3 values called q trees, to q bytes, or to q gigabytes, anything you want. Okay. Now, based on this, you can build a quantum computer. And the really big idea is that when you have like n qubits, you have 2 to the n possible values of the state. Like you have a byte, you have 8 bits, and 256 possible values. So the nice thing is that with only n qubits, you're able to encode 2 to the n different values. And if we were to do it using classical computer, you would need 2 to the n memory. Exponential against linear. Impossible against possible. Now when you have this notion of state, of quantum register, you just have to apply quantum assembly. And surprisingly, it's much simpler than the assembly, the classical assembly, because you just have linear operations, like matrix multiplications. You don't have things like AND or 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 XOR. It's totally linear. And so that's the computer science way to view it. So I don't expect you to understand, okay, that's how it works, but it's just to tell you the principle. If you look at the book, you can find this explanation very, very easily. And the point is that you cannot simulate this classically with a normal computer because you would need way too much memory. Okay. Now, why I'm here today is that there's this thing called quantum speedup. It basically means like solving a problem faster with a quantum computer than with a classical one. What's interesting is what we call super-polynomial quantum speedup. It's making the impossible possible. Okay. And that's why quantum computers famous breaking RSA and all this stuff. You can find a list of all the quantum speedups on this page managed by NIST called the Quantum Zoo, or the Quantum Speedup Zoo. And what's interesting is this problem called the abelian hidden subgroup problem. You may have never heard about this, but it's the kind of problem that's behind factoring, so RSA, and behind Diffie-Hellman, Edgar-Mal, elliptic curve cryptography. So all public key crypto is broken just because quantum computers can't solve this problem efficiently, because there's super polynomial quantum speedup. This means that you have to forget about RSA, ECC, Diffie-Hellman, which is all the public key crypto deployed on the internet, which means that everything becomes insecure with PGP, SSH, TLS, OTR, Axolotl, Tor, Bitcoin, everything. Except for the protocols that don't use public key crypto, like mobile communications that only use private keys, symmetric keys, 3G, 4G, LTE, WPA, it's used pre-short key as well, and Kerberos, except if you use public key in Kerberos. Okay. But it's not like, well, we don't have quantum computer today, so we don't really know how it works, but people have been making guesstimates and based on the technology we have today, and they say it will take, like I said, millions of qubits, and it wouldn't be like just you press the button and you get the factorization. It would take months, probably. Maybe in 20 years when we have built this, it would take, I don't know, weeks or days, but it's not super fast either. Okay. So the good news is that not everything's broken. In the case of symmetric key crypto, like AES, triple DES, all this stuff, hash functions, there's only a polynomial speedup, which means that it only makes the impossible slightly less impossible. Okay. You take AES 128, what you probably use every day. Instead of 128-bit security, this could be downgraded to 64-bit security, which is a bit too low, depending on the frequency of the quantum computer. In terms of hash functions, SHA-256, it could be downgraded from 256 to 128, and it doesn't really help to find collisions. You will find something called quantum collision finding, but it's slower than classical collision finding. So the good news is that there's a very simple solution. You just have to double the key size, or double the hash length, and you're done. As a case, when there's no speedup at all, not even speed up like for symmetric key crypto, is the NP-complete problems. As a miss, when you talk to journalists or to random people, they think that quantum computers are just super fast computers, that they will break everything like NP-complete problems. These are the kind of problems where the solution is hard to find, but easy to verify. There's problems where the solution is hard to find and hard to verify, but these problems are like the SAT constant satisfaction problems, scheduling problems, like many video games have been proven NP-complete, like Candy Crush, Mario Bros, and a couple others. So you'd say, oh, it might be a good idea to use this kind of problem for cryptography, to make cryptography quantum resistant. Well, guess what? That's what people are trying to do. You probably heard about this field of post-quantum cryptography. Some vendors call it quantum safe or quantum resistant. Well, the idea is to find alternatives to RSA, to Diffie-Hellman, to elliptic curves, that do the same functionality, like public key encryption, public key signatures, or key agreement, but that are not broken by a quantum computer. So it's easy to break things, but as you know, it's more difficult to show that it's not broken. What I want to say is that we're not totally sure that these schemes cannot be broken. We don't have any mathematical proof of it. Like for NP-complete problems, they just believe that it's not possible, but there's no hard evidence on this. So I talked about NP problems before, but it's not so easy to apply them in the case of cryptography. Because in many cases, NP-complete problems are hard in the worst case, but not on average. Whereas if you have a public key encryption scheme, you want it to be secure for all the keys, not just for certain ones. And that's why we have struggled to create secure cryptography based on NP-completeness, based on NP hardness. So why do we talk about post-quantum? It's because NSA, last year, so they published this document when they said that they want to modify Suite B, so the standard cryptography for commercial and unclassified applications. They want to integrate post-quantum cryptography. So now there's a lot of speculation, you know, because NSA is very, very evil and they might be up to something. But, you know, Still, they talk about adding post-quantum crypto in the not so distant future, which means, you know, for government, I'm saying 10 years or 25 years, but will probably be a bit longer. So, like I said, when they published this, you know, people went crazy. Oh, NSA, they have, you know, nasty plans. So, some people, some cryptographers and mathematicians, Neil Koblitz and Alfred Menezes, who are very well known for their critical point of view on cryptography, they listed a couple of theories about this, like the reasons why NSA would publish this. The first one was, oh, they're doing this because they can break post-quantum crypto, and they want you to use it to break your encryption. That would be, you know, if they can break it, eventually some other people will find a solution. That's probably not the right one. Another hypothesis they made is that NSA can break RSA. So here the thing is that they want you to switch to post-quantum, but not to ECC, not to elliptic curves. So you will stick to RSA for a while, maybe for 10, 20, 40 years, before you switch to post-quantum. And meanwhile, they would be able to break your communications because you don't use elliptic curves. Yeah. Another theory they made is that NSA was thinking of government users, because in government it takes ages to make changes. So they don't want to force them to switch to ECC, but they want them to switch first to post-quantum. Another theory is, I'm not sure that's right, because people gave me different opinions about this. I say that RSA will be more secure against quantum computers because there's more bits to break. In terms of mathematically, the group order is larger, so you will need more qubits, meaning that ECC would be broken first, and then it would just be a matter of time. I don't know if it's really true, because we don't really know, you know, the difference. But the last one is, they say, maybe Russia and China are investing a lot in building quantum computer, and if we have post-quantum schemes, they will be useless. I don't buy this one either. And the last one, they say, you probably heard about the dual EC fiasco, where this backdoor PRNG created by NSA and found in several commercial products, and maybe they want to distance themselves from this. I think they don't care, and you know, I think there's no easy answer. Maybe it's just risk management. Maybe they're not evil after all. I don't know. Now, what about you? What about us? Should we care about post-quantum? So, like I said, just risk management. Do you believe it or not? It's not totally rational. They may or may not show up. Some people say 100 years. Some people say never. Some people say just tomorrow. The question is, what insurance price are you ready to pay in terms of performance, in terms of deployment, in terms of risk? Because, well, your post-quantum scheme might be less secure than the pre-quantum one. What's important to know is that it's way, way more critical for encryption than for signatures. Because if you have something encrypted with RSA today, it will be encrypted. It will be decrypted the day a quantum computer is created. But if you have signed something today with RSA or ECDSA, well, you just have to reissue a new post-quantum signature when a quantum computer is about to be working, and revoke the key that you used to sign. So if you are to care about quantum computers, care about encryption and then signatures. Now, if you're really paranoid and you want to change now, maybe the best recommendation is what people from the BLAKE2 crypto project have been doing. It's a project founded by the European Union, led by Dan Burstein and other guys. They're doing a great job. And for encryption, they are proposing Machilis. Maybe you never heard about this, or maybe it's something new that they created. Actually, it dates back to the late 70s, 78 or 79, the first idea. And for signature, they propose XMSS things. Maybe you haven't heard about it either, but also it goes back to the 80s. It's very well understood schemes. And actually, there's an internal draft for XMSS since recently. What does it mean in terms of performance, of storage? If you use these hash-based schemes, so schemes that use a hash function, like SHA-2 or BLAKE2, to create signatures, you text things. The signature is a bit bigger than RSA signatures. It's 41 kilobytes. And 1 kilobyte of keys, and it's pretty slow. For XMSS, it's about the same. So the upshot here is that for many applications, it will be totally impractical, but some other applications where you don't really care about performance, like, I don't know, secure boot in some cases, it might work out. I don't know. The last part, I'm really on time. Have you heard about D-Wave? No, D-Wave is the quantum computing company. Since 1999, they've been working on quantum computing. It's a private company. They do a really good job. They have sold machines to Google, Lockheed Martin, NASA. They must be up to something big. And they claim to have machines with 1,000 qubits. So, oh my God, I can break RSA. Well, of course not. Because they're not the real thing. They do something quantum-ish, but it's not a quantum computer. It's not a universal quantum computer that can do everything that a theoretical computer can do. They do something called quantum annealing, which is kind of a quantum version of simulated annealing, which is a kind of meta-heuristic, which is a kind of technique to solve discrete optimization problem. Okay. But the most important to know is that it cannot break RSA. It cannot run the Shor algorithm that solves this abelian subgroup problem. So you don't need to care really about what D-Wave is doing if you're just worried about crypto. And what they're doing is only partially related to the problem of building a scalable universal quantum computer. Some of the research might help, but not everything. So I said they're pretty good at what they're doing, but the question is how useful is it? Is it useful for some problems? If you read the news the last couple of months, you may have read this headline that Google says, when Google says something, people listen, usually. Google says its quantum computer is 100 million times faster than a PC. Oh my God, I'm going to buy one and mine Bitcoin or whatever. And it's people from Google, serious people from Google, they say that this computer, this quantum-ish computer from D-Wave is 100 million times faster. Actually, what they did is that they took a specific problem, they built dedicated quantum hardware for this very specific problem, and they benchmarked it against a classical computer using some piece of software running on a general purpose CPU, using an algorithm that was not the optimal one, code that was not totally optimized. And asymptotically, for very large problems, in some cases, the quantum version was faster than the classical one. But it doesn't mean that it's intrinsically faster than the classical computer. And some people really debunk this claim. If you look at Scott Aronson's blog, they explain this very, very clearly. Okay. So my conclusions, say, was short talk. If you manage top secret level assets that you're up to important things, you should do this in this order. You should encrypt your data in transit, at rest. You should manage the keys correctly and the passphrases. Maybe use secure hardware, store it securely, follow those boring protocols. Do your best to prevent leaks and blackmail and espionage and people betraying you. If you use RSA with large enough keys, so 72 bits gives you about 128-bit security. If you use DCC, at least 256-bit curves for 128-bit security. If you use symmetric key ciphers, I would say at least 256. And if you do everything here right, then you're like in the top 1%. From what I've seen, it's very difficult to get all this correctly. And now when you've done all this, maybe you can start worrying about quantum computers and start to move to something post-quantum. But we shouldn't be paranoid. We should see reality and don't buy the hype. Okay, thank you very much.